Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Vinny Costa, editor of Street Muscle Magazine, and your host of the Rodcast, the all-encompassing car show where we talk about all things automotive. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Greg Acosta, editor of Engine Labs and the all-around tech guru. What's up, Greg?
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm excited for today. I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited for every episode, but especially this one because I get to talk to my buddy Erik Radzins of ProCharger. We get to talk about superchargers first. Yeah, exactly. First of all, we get to talk about superchargers.
Yeah.
Second of all, I get to talk to my buddy Erik, and he's like a hoot, man. He's so much fun. So that's cool.
Yeah, dude, Erik. I remember actually when we did our very first test show of this. Remember it was MPMC.
Yeah.
And remember how we were supposed to go out to dinner like right after, and then we were gonna come back and work on it, and I didn't show up for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because I had a meeting with Erik, and we just sat there and just shot the shit for 2.5 hours.
Nice. Yeah, no, but Erik is he's that type of guy. You could just even if you're not talking about cars, let's face it, you're going to be talking about cars, but it could be any type of car, or like motorsports or boats or jet skis or whatever. He's just that kind of guy where you're going to go down a bunch of rabbit holes and have fun during the conversation, which is why we wanted to have him on.
Yeah.
But we're off camera right now. I don't know why I brought this up to you. Oh, because it's been in the news a lot lately. I was asking you. This is totally off topic. We're totally shifting gears. But I was asking you about Nissan, and I was saying that, man, I wish they would make a new Xterra because I liked the old ones. And then you brought up something that I hadn't thought about, and I promise this will come full circle. I will make it come full circle. But you had an interesting theory as to like why they stopped making it and why. Yeah.
I mean, they were very, very full in that space. I mean, think about it. In that SUV-esque area, right? We had the Pathfinder, we had the Xterra, and I think those two were very close, even though the Pathfinder was probably a little bit more capable off-roadish vehicle.
It was like full size. It was a big proper SUV, and the Xterra was kind of like, I wouldn't call it a crossover. That's not doing the Xterra justice, but it was closer,
But remember, they also had in the crossover side, they had the Rogue and the Murano.
Yeah.
So I mean, in that little space, you have the more car-based SUVs or crossovers, and then you have the Xterra and the Pathfinder. I would honestly say, because the Pathfinder wasn't expensive, it's not like it was an up-level vehicle, right? It was pretty much comparable to the Xterra, new for new.
Yeah, but I still don't get why they were overlooked. For me, the Pathfinder was ugly, and ugly in a way that I didn't like. I didn't like it. I didn't want one. I wouldn't want one. And it's like big, it's just a big SUV. To me, that would be like owning a Suburban over a Tahoe, But then also the Xterra, I always thought that the Xterra and the Frontier never got a fair shake. They're capable off-road. I mean, they had a supercharged version. I told you I'd bring it full circle. They had a supercharged version that was four-wheel drive. The Frontier, same thing. They had a supercharged version that was four-wheel drive. But they were always like overlooked because the Tacoma and the 4Runner were so popular that I think people who were in that market segment who wanted an economic, off-road mid-size truck or mid-size SUV, they're not going to go get that Nissan. They're going to go get the Toyota. So I don't know.
I mean, I've always been a fan of Nissan stuff. I have two friends who've had Frontiers, both of them amazing trucks. I now have a Frontier. So
that's right.
They weren't overlooked by me.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think they're a great value because now you can pick them up for a decent amount of money, but that they're going to last. Nissan is a brand that I think most people trust. I mean, I don't know too much about their engineering, but I haven't heard anybody complain. I've talked to a lot of Nissan owners. So anyways, if anybody from Nissan is listening or watching, make a new Xterra. They're cool. And they're so ugly that I like them. And they're, in my opinion, I like them better than a Jeep. So there you go. But anyways, superchargers. I told you guys that we were going to bring it full circle. Supercharged Nissans, superchargers, ProChargers. Let's talk to Erik. This episode was brought to you with the help of Performance Distributors, the company that allows you to feel the difference, not just ignite a spark. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, their ignition systems are designed and manufactured under the most stringent of guidelines. In fact, the owner, Steve Davis, told us their systems are designed as if they're running them on their own vehicles. And that's because they are. But one of the products you may already know them for is their line of DUI distributors, the first and one of the best HEI distributors on the market. Their machine calibrated timing curves provide instant throttle response and eliminate engine damaging detonation. Now, for those of you with late model vehicles, their Sultans of Spark ignition coils are based on the DUI technology, so they too can accommodate a wider plug gap when firing out more voltage. So check out performancedistributors.com for all your ignition needs. That's performancedistributors.com. Erik the Rad Man Radzins. What's up, dude?
The Rad Man. Oh, that's, you know, my nickname used to be Rocket Man because my first boss could not pronounce my last name. He's like, Erik, Rocket Man, whatever. So, I worked for Pizza Hut, and the name tag literally was made and said Rocket Man.
That's hilarious.
I guarantee I still have it somewhere. But
that's
yeah.
Awesome. Wait, so then am I saying it right?
Radzins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Super easy. Yeah.
Dude. Hey, thank you for making time to do this, Erik. I really appreciate it, brother.
I will always make time for you guys.
Oh,
Wait, I will always make time to talk about horsepower.
For sure.
You could stop me in the middle of the store and I am late to go to something, but if you somehow say you want to talk about horsepower, I will be there for the next 30 minutes.
You should make that your Instagram bio. But
if you want to talk about horsepower, just message me.
Yeah.
Hit up my own.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, among other things. But we should start at the beginning. I've known you for a few years now, Erik, but I actually don't know your whole origin story, how you came to work with ProCharger and how that relationship developed. I know that there's a story there. So how about we start at the beginning?
How a farm kid ended up working at a supercharger company. Autobiography. Well, that's it. So my family is not from the United States. They migrated over here. I was actually born in Wisconsin while my dad was in college. We ended up moving to Kansas because my dad is a microbiologist for now probably one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, which is a pretty big deal because they're...
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they make... anyways, for the COVID vaccine, they make 1 million transport systems a week now. Anyway, none of this matters. But so anyways, we moved to Kansas to live on a farm. And I think I learned to drive when I learned to drive stuff when I was 5, but by myself. I think I was about 7 years old when you got handed, the keys or whatever. And that was it. You just tried not to run into stuff. So, it started small, mowing the lawn, things like that. Well, on the farm, we had a Ford Maverick. Actually, we had a couple Ford Mavericks.
Nice.
Our neighbor actually raised Longhorn steers. So it was fun, the whole Maverick.
Yeah.
So anyways, it was just a real big deal. I was so excited when I graduated from lawnmowers and 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers, and I could actually drive a car, so I would take it out in the pastures and on our land and stuff. And it was a 6-cylinder car, so it wasn't really all that exciting, but it was just the freedom that I could go somewhere and I could go 40 miles an hour or something. And then eventually my dad got us a Grand Marquis, which nobody will probably remember this, but it's a very large car, and it had a 460 Ford and a C6 transmission. And I thought this thing was bad because it made V8 noises and I could take it back in the pasture. And when I was far, 300 acres away from the house, I would just do rippers. Just hauling up and down the pasture, doing donuts and stuff, and pretty much everything a young kid should not be doing by himself. And I somehow I never crashed it. And somehow also never got in trouble. So if my father listens to this, he's now going to be
big farm.
Great. Yeah. Anyway, so I fell in love with the car. I fell in love with what everybody falls in love with, the freedom to go do something. And obviously I fell in love with the, V8s, and the bigger the engine, the more noise, the more fast. And I just obviously thought it was cool. So fast forward, eventually we moved away from the farm. I moved into the city and then learned that like a lot of the things that I liked doing, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, and all this other stuff, well, you just couldn't do it anymore, And so I was moving into junior high and high school, which I had my driver's license in junior high because I was a farm kid, which was pretty sweet. So I didn't have a lot of money, and my parents didn't believe in giving you something. So I rode a moped to my first job so that I could save up for my first car, which was a Toyota Cressida.
Nice.
And I dreamed of doing a turbo swap on that because the Toyota Supras had a turbo. And from my limited information, I had figured out that the motors were very similar. So just so you know, Toyota Cressidas and old school Supras shared a lot of parts. And then I never did it. I was convinced I was going to do some mods to that thing. Well, then eventually I would read Super Ford magazine, like this, old school.
Nice.
I don't even know why this is still in my office, but it's just like
Look at those matching yellow wheels.
That's so, yeah, actually it's not even a Celine. Those are some OZs right there.
So let me guess the date on that. That's about 97, 98.
95.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't see it here, but right. Where does it say it? Right there. 95. Anyways. So yeah, anyways. So when you're in high school, I just was like, dude, I need a V8. Like I gotta have a V8. So I sold the Cressida. I got a Ford Probe. So I went backwards. I went from a 6-cylinder to a 4-cylinder. But I had a plan because I was gonna flip that thing so I could buy a Mustang. And that's all I wanted.
Literally flip it for the insurance money, or
no, like sell it. So if my Aunt Julie ever listens to this, I'm so sorry that I bought your Ford Probe that you gave me a very good deal on, and I immediately sold it for a huge profit to buy a Mustang. But I wouldn't be here today, Julie, if I couldn't buy that Mustang. So anyways, backing up. So then I had I had my 5-liter, my 5.0, man. Like I was addicted. And obviously once you are into 5-liter Mustangs, you want to mod them. You can do these things that a broke high school kid like me could afford, which was like catback and some gears, shift kit, because it was an automatic, H-pipe. But golly, all I wanted was a supercharger. I mean, but you got to think a supercharger costs more than I paid for the whole car at that time. So that pretty much set my goal into motion. I was going to figure out how I could get a supercharger. And that was, well, I should probably try to figure out how I can work for that company. And then my dad basically said if I wanted to work for a car company, it probably wasn't going to work out very well and I needed to go to school. So I went to school for mechanical engineering. And the whole time I was in school at K-State, which is about 2.5 hours away from Kansas City, I would come home every weekend to go street racing. I'm gonna say it. I went street racing every single weekend. That's what I did. And I obviously
judge-free zone, Eric.
Yeah, I know, so bad. I actually made a street racing website that blew up because that was how I figured out how to meet people, because I couldn't figure out. I never knew where to go street racing, so I finally made a website so people could talk about where they're going street racing. Anyways, I back this up. So while I was at K-State, I was working for a Ford dealership to try to afford my Mustang Cobra I had at the time that I had bought on eBay. And the guy never set a reserve. So I got a Cobra for $10,000 in, what was it, 2001. I had a 97 Cobra that I got for 10 grand.
Nice.
I mean, 10 grand would actually be a pretty good price for that car today.
Yeah, I was gonna say, though, that's about a $12,000 car right now.
But so back that up. So think about this, like eBay, remember back in the day, like early eBay, like 1999, 2000. I mean, it was like a serious place. So like if you sold something and screwed it up, I mean, you thought you were going to get like sued by the government. You're just like, oh, I can't screw this up. Now it's all full of spam and everybody's getting hosed and all that. But this guy had a 97 Cobra, had like, I don't know, 60,000 miles on it. And it was his daily driver. He was in med school. and he put it up on eBay and had a no reserve on it. And I think I ended up, I got it for like 10 grand at like $10,100. And he's like, dude, I can't sell it to you. And I'm like, you have to, because I won it, man. And there was no reserve. So it's like, I scared the guy into, I mean, he's like, oh God, I got to sell it. So anyways, none of this matters, but I had a Cobra that I couldn't afford. And I used it to go street racing, and I did a lot of it. And all I cared about was how can I have a supercharger someday? I mean, how could I get there? Well, I don't even know how to. So I would apply. I would dig through magazines. Obviously, Weld Racing is in Kansas City. Automotive was in Kansas City. Taylor Wires is in Kansas City, and all kinds of other small motorsports shops. But in the ads, ProCharger was in Lenexa, Kansas, which is a suburb right here. And I was like, that's where I got to work. I got to do this. And ProCharger at that time was in like a 5,000 square foot building, which now I would have to assume it's like 100,000 plus or something. Anyway. So very small at that time and very limited number of people. And I remember walking in the first day and, like, hey, I'd like to work here. And it was like, no. And then, like a couple months later, no. And then like a year later, no. And then this process went on for years. But I was just consistent. I was like, I'm going to work there. It's going to happen. I'm going to keep giving them my resume. And then a guy named Dave Culver was like, you want to be a tech guy? Answer phones. I'm like, yes, sign me up. And yeah, so some of my cars, while I was working here, because I got the job, would get used for products. So like my 97 Cobra was the first one with an SC self-contained blower on it. So basically every magazine editor under the sun beat on my Mustang. So I don't know if that's good. I thought it was cool. And my 93 Cobra to this day has the first helical gear ProCharger on it. So if you guys know what that is, it's the angle cut gear for the quieter. Because I had a 93 Cobra and I wanted it to be quiet, but I also wanted to have a supercharger on it. Well, still has it to this day. Actually has the first twin high flow intercooler system on it. All kinds of stuff. Because we're all car guys here, all of us. I mean, from Johnny, that's our creative director, to the sales guys, to shipping, welding, and all that. It's cool that a lot of our cars are where some of our products start. I mean, we now have a Coyote swapped Ford Lightning kit because Clint here has a Ford Lightning with a Coyote in it. He wanted a ProCharger. Well, guess what? Now we have that kit because it's actually becoming a pretty popular swap to put a Coyote in.
It must be nice to have such a large pool of R&D vehicles to pull from. But
yeah.
Hey, so how long have you been there now?
Okay, so
and what's your current role entail?
My current role is the director of communications. I think it's because I like to talk to people. No, I'm just kidding. I enjoy. Okay, I love working for ProCharger because it's the same reason of why I work in the car industry. I wanted to be in the car industry. My sights were set on being in the car industry, or I should say performance industry, and I never deviated from that. I've owned a performance shop. I've owned companies that have made products in the aftermarket industry. I obviously have worked here for 11 years. I just love this industry. Well, my love for this industry is about as good as ProCharger's love is for being the best centrifugal supercharger company there is. And that's, whether that's on the industrial side, where we have these big giant centrifugal superchargers for the industrial applications, or even our normal stuff for racing, like the F3X. So to me, it's been awesome to see a company go from a P600B, like an oil-fed, straight cut gear blower, very simple by today's standards, all the way to like the new F4X, which is a very complicated supercharger. And it's been awesome to see a company always keeping up, buying the best machines that we can buy, the ability to rapid prototype, and man, it's just been good. I really like this place. I just love.
Well, it shows, man. It really shows. Like, I want to get into all that technical stuff. But like Right now I'm concerned with Erik, the car guy, the person, right? And so like your attitude for this whole thing is contagious. Every time I sit down with you and I talk to you, I get excited because I'm like, it's reinvigorating because I have that same passion, but like sometimes when you do this every day, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just work. But then when you sit down and you talk to somebody who's just as juiced about it as you are, it's just, you get that going. It's cool.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you. Again, growing up as a farm kid, you're kind of by yourself a lot, right? You can't just like walk next door and hang out with your friend, right? I mean, it's you only would see your friends at school and stuff like that. So I think what you were very systematic about who you hung out with, like positive people, and because you wanted to have a good time, right? So I feel like like in this industry, I like navigating. There's so many positive people in this industry because, and you can tell because they want to hang out with people that are pushing the envelope, pushing the bar, thinking outside the box, trying new things, and being okay with failing. I mean, I got a lot of friends that build some really cool car projects, and a lot of them, I mean, sometimes don't go well at all, right? But I guess that's my thing. I mean, trust me, I have done some really wrong stuff and spent some money in the wrong places, but I don't ever tell anybody about that, on the internet.
I feel like you do. You're pretty open and like honest. Like we're friends on Facebook, and
Right.
you're not shy about your posting. Like, and you're pretty opinionated, and you get the conversation started and going, which I appreciate. Like we've even gone back and forth on some stuff. GM's new logo, which is pretty funny. Yeah. But no, I feel like you're pretty honest and straightforward about all that stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just meant to say, like, there's some people that they kind of they're very negative and very quick to bash companies or products and stuff like that, and it's like, man, we all have our trials and errors, but it's, it's like the stock market. You're going to have your ups and downs, right? But you're heading in the right direction. Anyways, backtracking it, our industry is full of very passionate people. A lot of them have ADHD. It's not I don't know, we probably don't have the best money management skills, but hey, whatever, we're doing what we love. And that is what has made, so speaking of GM, that is what's made our industry make technology leaps and bounds, I think, almost better than OEM passenger cars for like normal human beings. Because in 2000, let's see, you had a Camaro that made, somebody back me up on this, like 300.
2000, 240 horsepower, that 2-valve. Yeah.
Well, a Mustang made no horsepower. A Camaro made more.
Oh, a Camaro 330, I think.
Yeah, 330. Okay. Well, you got to think that is a V6 Mustang now, right?
Yeah.
It's a 4-cylinder. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah. Because you got one. So, okay. So, in the performance car world, in 20 years, it's been leaps and bounds. I mean, like, look how fast stuff is. I mean, you can buy a 2020 Mustang GT, slap a ProCharger on it, put a fuel system on it, and for like 12 grand in mods, you got a car that goes, well, 9s all day long. And I guess if you got enough suspension, you probably could go 8s with an entry-level blower and a fuel system.
It's nuts.
Because passion has gotten us here. But if I bought a Honda Accord in 2000 and I buy a Honda Accord now, they still get about the same gas mileage, everything, except for, I guess, you got Apple CarPlay. But I mean, think about it. You had heated seats back then. Cool. You had cruise control back then. Also cool. Whatever. About the only thing that the OEM car world's given people in 20 years, I guess, is backup cameras, tire pressure monitors, and Apple CarPlay.
That's a good point.
Prove me wrong.
No, it's a fantastic point, dude. It's
a Civic in 1996 got like basically 50 miles to the gallon. Guess what it gets today? 50 miles to the gallon. Now, if they would have had the same technology leaps and bounds, I mean, think of what did a Mustang run in a quarter mile in 1990?
So in 2000, a base GT ran 14 seconds flat.
Really? I
That
thought,
that was a magazine car. There's no way you like.
yeah,
the average
I'm
dude-
going with high 14s. High 14.
Yeah, the average dude was knocking. I mean, they could probably win a 15-second cruise street event with their
Right.
friends.
I would go with that. I would say that they were 14.8s. Because I'm telling you, my college roommate had a 1996 GT, and we never even got it to get a 14-second pass. I mean,
Really?
no, God, no. I'm pretty sure that car wouldn't have gone a 14 if you dropped it from an aircraft.
Hey man,
And I'm a
don't
Mustang
blame me.
guy. I'm a Mustang guy.
Blame Google.
I'm a Mustang guy. I love it, but I just they were not fast.
No, definitely not.
Um,
But
so, anyways, so think about it. But now, I mean, what's a Mustang run now? 12s
yeah, 12,
at
12
least.
something.
Well, aren't the automatics, the A10s into like 1190s?
Okay, that's okay. I think they are 11.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
That's a big jump in not a long time.
And they got heavier too, I think.
Well, right. I mean, because they had to and all the stipulations and all that. But again, look at what Dodge is doing. They haven't changed that car since 2006 as far as the body is concerned, but they're just like more horsepower, whatever, demon, blah, blah, blah. Now it's, hey, man.
They're brand experts, man. They're
Dude,
awesome.
Because they have tapped into the super, super exciting stuff. And I think Ford's done a wonderful job as well. I mean, you walk into SEMA and you got freaking Raptor pickup trucks and the Ford GT that obviously none of us are, well, I mean, maybe, we could win the lottery, but chances of me owning are absolutely zero. But props to them for building that thing. It's beautiful. I don't even care that it has a V6 in it. It's just awesome. God dang, it's cool. So,
well, okay, so I have a question though.
yeah.
So do you think that huge disparity in power and performance is because of so if you look at the timeline of the performance automobile, you look at 60s, 70s, it was like a free-for-all, kind of like now. They were just like, let's stuff a bigger engine in it.
Right.
And then, they got choked by emissions and politicians got involved and, the no fun time came in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And so then
this car, I'm well aware of the no fun time.
yeah. So, that kind of carried over into the 2000s, and then mid 2000s, they started waking up again, the resurgence, and engineers started finding ways to get around that and create an efficient and, I guess, greener performance car, and now we're here, where you can kind of have the best of both worlds. So do you think that only that huge disparity only happened because they were regulated so far down, or is it because I don't know, I guess that's my question.
I think again somebody's going to listen to this that works for an OEM and just completely tell me I'm wrong. I feel like there obviously must have been something in the way for performance during certain time periods. And I don't know what that is because obviously I didn't work for an OEM at that time period. But, like from 1993 to 2005, there was really not much of an improvement in the Mustang performance world. Now, in the aftermarket, I mean, dudes are doing everything they can to make these things faster. But as far as the OEM car, not until the 2003 Cobra came out with the supercharger on it did anybody care.
I love the Terminator.
Game changer. I mean, that just here we go.
Independent rear suspension, blower. Oh, that's so cool.
Good transmission. I mean, that might be one of the last muscle cars built. True, raw. I mean, anybody? What else would be a true muscle?
Well, now we're getting into the super muscle cars like we've been talking. I honestly feel like in the past 2 decades, the definition of muscle car has had to change.
Yes, because, okay.
Technically, it would be a pony car.
So nowadays, when a guy buys like a ProCharger kit for a 2020 Mustang, they want it to make a minimum of like 700 horsepower, right? I mean, a bolt-on kit's 700 horsepower. And then they're probably going to put E85 on it and whatever. But it has to drive perfect, never miss a beat, never have a check engine light, never like the
Air conditioning, heated
wiggle.
seats, warranty on the drivetrain.
So it's-
Yeah.
A customer now expects an aftermarket performance vehicle to be as perfect as an OEM vehicle, where back in the 2003 Cobra days, you didn't give a crap if that thing would die at every other stoplight. If that thing made 700, 800 horsepower, who cares, man?
It's a race car. Who cares?
Yeah, it was a race car. But there's very few. Okay. Well, I had a 96 Viper. That was pretty much a muscle car.
Holy shit.
You know, no ABS, no traction control, a big giant engine.
God, those things are death traps. They're awesome.
It was by far the most beautiful car I've ever owned, and also the worst car I've ever owned. I would peek out in the garage because I was like, oh, it's such a beautiful automobile. And then you would drive it, and after about 20 minutes, you're like, I've got to get out of this car. Like, I'm sweating to death because it was so hot inside. If it was 50 degrees out, you had to have the air conditioning on because you were sweating to death in the interior. And then you probably almost killed yourself 3 times just trying to floor it.
Those things are awesome, but no driver assist. It was like basically like a race car for sure. And I drove a 2016 ACR and I loved it. It was fantastic, but I can't imagine that kind of power in that light of a car.
That's actually a good example. So think about that. Okay. A 1997 Viper is basically a pile of crap. It's just got a big engine, a bunch of truck parts. It's absolutely beautiful, but it's really not a very refined car. And anybody that owns one will admit that if you ask them enough times. But think about it. That car was crap, and most people didn't care. And now it's gone now, but the last generation of Viper, absolutely an amazing machine. Kick butt. It's
incredible.
Almost flawless, but nobody cared because for some strange reason, everyone always thought that the Viper was just always going to be crap or be a bad driving experience. And I honestly feel that Dodge was so heavily marketing into other stuff that they really did that car a disservice by not promoting that car enough. They really had a home run on their hands, and unfortunately not a lot of people were buying it. And I really think that car was probably one of the best bangs for the buck when you could get a Viper TA for, what were those things, like 100 grand or 80 grand?
Yeah, they weren't. I don't even think they cracked 100 for the TA.
No, I mean, what a bang for the, I mean, that's now a C8 Corvette. Would you rather have a C8 Corvette or a Viper TA?
Wait, I'm asking the questions over here, Eric. All right, now you're trying to ask me the hard questions. You can't make me decide something like that.
AKA, I don't want to answer on camera.
No, I haven't driven a C8. I have driven one of those Vipers, so I got to go with the Viper.
Unfortunately, I guess the point I was trying to make is that the performance side of stuff had some amazing changes, and I don't know if the general public is aware of that. I feel like somebody that's not an enthusiast would not know how much that vehicle changed in 20 years.
That's a good point. I want to shift gears here for a second and kind of backtrack a little bit to something that you touched on a little bit earlier, as far as like what was an acceptable power number for people back in the day versus now. And this was something I was asking you about off camera. I'm curious, what do you think it takes for someone to build an exciting street car these days as far as like power? What's a shocking number now compared to like yesterday?
Okay. So the problem with this question is I am now 40 years old. So I get excited by stuff that I see on the internet, but then I also have reality of what I have to tell people. Like, there's perception and then there's reality. Could you build a motor in a Mustang or a GT350 with all the good parts, put an F1A94 on it and make 1,300? Yes, you absolutely can do that.
God.
Are you? Yeah. And it's huge, but I don't even know if the internet is going to care. I mean, I have customers with GT350s that make, I think that Mitchell Pope makes like 1,400 now with the GT350 and F1A 94. But it's so weird that like, I mean, that people care, but they're not like, they're just like, oh, it makes 1400. Why doesn't it make 15? Okay. But like my friend with the ZL1, he wants to do a ProCharger on it, make 1200 horsepower and all that. But then here's the 40-year-old version of me saying, hey man, have you ever owned a car that made 800? Oh, well, you should probably start with a car that makes 800 before owning a car with 1200. And it's so hard to get someone to dial back because it's so easy to look on the internet and see these bigger numbers that to me, like I daily drive a 2017 Mustang with a ProCharger on it and make 660 to the tire. And that is absolutely enough power for something that you drive every day. I really did. I mean, it's right at the limit of what the tires can handle. I don't break axles. I don't break transmissions. I don't break drive shafts. It's fun, usable power. My girlfriend can drive it. I have no issues giving the keys to her. She loves the car. I mean, frankly, she loves the thing. God, she loves that car. Whatever Ford did to the 2015 and up Mustang, somehow they made women fall in love with that car. They really, really like them.
It's the slight European styling, I think.
No, it's 100% true because Jamie won't ride in the 94 with me. Like she's flat out said, I'm done with that car. Any chance she can get into the 2020, she's in it. I mean, she loves that car. There is something that has been able to pull non-enthusiasts into that car.
The Mustang has always had that ability though, don't you think?
No.
Okay, maybe not in the 70s.
No, but I'm telling you, no, dude, women do not care about the Fox body Mustang. Women care about square body Chevys. I mean, you show a woman a square body Chevy truck and they're just like, yes.
You damn right, I'll drink a Coors Light to that, brother.
And then you show them a 93 Cobra and they're like Porsches. I mean, there's some women that like them, but I mean, for the most part, that's a very male-oriented vehicle. 911s. I'm sorry, dudes love 911s, and other dudes like talking about other dudes' 911s.
I'm not a Porsche guy. Yeah.
But anyways, I don't even know how we got.
People do like them.
I don't even know how we got this, but I'm genuinely so excited for where performance is going, and I don't even care that electric is part of it. Like
it's cool.
So I mean, if you see me on the Facebook and the internet, I feel like adding electricity to a performance vehicle is just making it that much better. I mean,
how do we crack that one? How do we figure that out?
I mean, I think it's going to be a natural. To me, think about it like this: drum brakes and disc brakes. Obviously, when cars started getting disc brakes in the front of them, do you think anybody was like, no, we've got to go back to drum brakes. They're the best.
Aside from drum brake manufacturers, no.
Right. You just went, oh, okay, I get it. This works pretty good. I got some discs in the front. I got some drums in the back, whatever. I mean, I think a Chevy truck was like that until 2013. And then other cars got disc brakes all the way around, right? It's just a progressive thing. But it's not like I can't go to AutoZone and buy drum brakes today, right? They didn't disappear.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not like they're banned. They're not outlawed, thank God. And you can still get parts for them. I feel like that's how performance is going to be. I feel like we got our gas vehicles, we got our hot rods, our muscle cars, our LS swapped Chevy trucks or whatever they are. And then we're eventually going to have these daily driven cars that have electric motors or assisted or whatever. And there's going to be that thing. I have no issues driving an electric car every day. Love them. I think they're great just for my A to B. But you are not taking away my ProCharge Cobra for the weekends. Not happening. Because that's the sounds I've wanted since I was living on the farm, doing donuts in the field. That's my mental getaway. I have to have V8 noises in my life. But
I don't think that's asking too much, man. I mean, you plug in appliances, right? And that's what you used to get from point A to point B. And their performance is, it's impressive. So we'll see how that turns out. But definitely, our hobby isn't going anywhere.
No, No, it's not. And you know, you don't want to stand in the way of any of that, because it's that technology and engineering that trickles down and helps us. I mean, wideband O2 sensors. We didn't invent those, like the aftermarket performance guys didn't. That's OEM stuff. But man, now that you can tune a car with widebands, knock sensors, load dynos, EGTs, I mean, you name it. Well, that's how we are getting the most performance out of these vehicles, thanks to all this technology that came from the OEMs and trickled down to us, you know. I'm not saying that the aftermarket didn't invent anything. I'm just saying.
I want to get back to that original question, Eric. For you, how would somebody impress you with you pull up to Cars and Coffee, you're looking around, you're seeing, you know, oh, new Corvette, new C8, a couple Mustangs, whatever. And then you see something that really like blows your mind. What is it?
Okay. It's two things, because I go to Cars and Coffee. And what always blows my mind is something that someone does in their garage themselves. It's not about horsepower. I follow random people on Instagram that have done like motor swaps, you know, so they'll take like a Coyote motor and drivetrain and they'll stick it in, you know, any number of things. And to me, that's what's really cool, is taking like a modern drivetrain that makes 400 horsepower, even if it's just NA, or maybe it's got a ProCharger on it, then it's super cool in my book. And they've, in their garage over time, put it in something that they loved. Maybe it's not even something super cool by today's standards, but just like a Volvo wagon with like a really clean motor swap, right? I mean, clean where the gauges work. And man, that's what really impresses me. I mean, I got a buddy's 67 Chevy truck right now. There's a lot of people with those C10s, right? A lot of them on Roadster shop chassis and Willwood brakes and all that. The reason why his, to me, is the definition of perfection is because he built it himself. The motor, the paint, the body, the interior, the wiring. And it's not, I mean, if he didn't know how to do it, he just took the time to learn how to do it. I mean, that to me blows my mind, because I can appreciate the hundreds of hours that are put into that one vehicle. And I think that's just the deal. Or truly, and then the second thing that impresses me is when a guy builds a car, let's say it goes 8s, like a Mustang, I don't know, whatever, Camaro, and he does it all the time. I'm not talking like goes out and makes one pass and talks about it for the rest of the year. I'm talking the guy that literally, he's like, hey, let's say you want a 990, right? And then 2 weeks later, you see him on Facebook and he's like, hey, I want a 970. And then 2 weeks after that on Facebook, he's like, hey, I want a 960. The guy that is constantly chipping away at that number and setting a new personal best, that, dude, I love that stuff. And especially if he isn't like blowing a motor up every week. Like he's doing these small changes to like suspension, tires, weight, the tune. You know, man, that stuff, I love watching a car progress over the course of time.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think like ProCharger, obviously at this stage in the game, ProCharger carries a lot, like just the name carries a lot of weight in this industry. People know it. Do you think that the company has built that name more so due in part to like the success you guys have had for with like street cars or cars at the racetrack?
Personally, I believe it's both. And it's not just the product. To me, it's what people do with the product. That's what's super neat. I mean, we can make a blower and rate it at 900 horsepower crankshaft horsepower, and it'll be like 2 months later somebody makes that number to the wheels. because they figured out what camshaft worked absolutely the best, or compression ratio or whatever, and they made that supercharger almost go beyond what we thought it could do, right? Which is obviously what racers do. And I'm not talking about like overspinning the blowers. I'm talking about just really dialing in a combo. So thankfully, our customers make our products look even better than they are, because they're always out there exceeding expectations. I mean, I feel like we do a great job of giving a accurate power rating or expectation of what a person should achieve. And I think that most of our customers always exceed that, and then they go beyond that even more.
Definitely.
But I think when you see it, well, I mean, Pro Mod's cool, right? I mean, there's a lot of ProCharge Pro Mods now, and
That's what I'm saying. You guys have a lot of wins under your belt, you know?
yeah. So obviously, I mean, I love to go into the track and watching blower cars go fast. I wanted to work for that company, you know. But I truly love seeing the classes where there's every power adder in it. I don't like seeing classes that are just turbos or just blowers, or it's boring. It's really boring to me. I love seeing the drama of, I mean, dude, we all get it. I mean, twin turbo cars, you have 206 millimeter turbos. Congratulations. You have 212 millimeters of intake airflow that can go into an engine, right? They make power. I find it so cool that you got guys that can take a F3X 140 and at the stripe be door to door. So I love seeing the driver battles, you know.
Erik, real quick, this is something that I had struggled with in the past. Now that I'm kind of in the industry, I've been in the industry for a few years now. I got a better handle on it. But for our viewers and listeners at home, could you define some of the terminology within ProCharger? Like, your product lines have distinct names, and
Yeah.
so for the average enthusiast, they might not know what that stuff means.
Okay, so first we've got a letter and a number, and then more numbers after that. So let's say, so F1, that's the gearbox. So an F1 gearbox could be an F1A, an F1A 94, et cetera, et cetera. So what you're looking at is F1 is the gearbox. A is the size of the compressor, or the part that looks like a snail. And then the number after that is the impeller in millimeters. So F1A94, for example, F1 gearbox, 9 3/4 or 9-inch housing. Yeah, 9-inch housing and 94 millimeter compressor. So an F3D 102 is an F3 gearbox, which is bigger than an F1 gearbox. The D compressor housing, I should know this off the top of my head, I believe is 10.5 inches. And then the 102 would be the millimeter of the compressor. So that goes all the way up to, like I said, F3X, which would be still that F3 gearbox. The X is the 13.5-inch compressor and a 140. So an F3X 140. So that's why now we have the F4X, which just came out, brand new, the new blower for Pro Mod for 2021, or I believe 2021. And the gearbox is all new. So it is bigger than an F3. So hence the F4, but the X, the compressor is staying the same and the impeller is staying the same. So only the gearbox changed, which was just for a durability thing. Now the guys are approaching 3,500 to 4,000. We needed a gearbox that could, hopefully go an entire season without needing a refresh. I mean, time will tell. So
that's your guys' like big boy stuff. Then you guys have the D series, right? So
P1SC and D1SC are the same. Yeah. So those are legacy. So we can't change the name as much as we would like to change the naming of those to make more sense. We can't, because California Air Research Board has executive orders tied to those. So all those older kits that use P1SCs and D1SCs are Everything has to stay the same, and it will till the end of time. We have to use the same injectors, the same tunes, the same blowers, the same blower pulley. Nothing can change.
If you were able to tweak some of that stuff, do you think that there's some efficiencies that could be gained?
I mean, always, but I mean, guys are going to do that anyway because they're going to. I mean, most of those cars now are modified. So say a guy was buying a blower kit for a 2004 Mach 1. I mean, chances are he's probably going to put headers on it and some other things that aren't legal anyways. So could we tweak it? But he's probably already tweaked it anyway.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So how long have you guys been running the F nomenclature and everything that you were just describing?
Probably 20 years. Yeah. Oh, well, making it make sense and explaining it better, probably 4 years.
Okay.
Try to explain it to guys like you. Where gearbox, volute, impeller. That's kind of been recent because most people were kind of confused because we just have so many blowers. And the reason for that is because there's blowers that do a very good job for a good reason. If I had a big block Chevy and I just wanted the most brutal mid-range blower to make like 1,200 horsepower on like my boat, for example, an F2 is just wicked good. I mean, that blower is absolutely brutal to make like anywhere from 900 to 1,400 horsepower. So there's no reason to get rid of it, even though an F1X can make more power than it overall. But by nature, an F1X, if I tried to slow it all the way down to 900 horsepower, would have a much softer mid-range in it. So
interesting.
That when anybody's trying to buy a blower for their combo, we really want them to call us or call an engine builder that has a really good grasp on our product line. Because sometimes unfortunately, I'll see somebody buy the wrong blower because the internet told them to do that. But the internet actually has no idea. Well, the internet usually does know what it's talking about, but sometimes does not.
Yeah, you have to sift through a bunch of BS.
Yeah, so, if there's a guy that wants to, what's the word I'm looking for? An F1R, for example, is a very specific blower. It does very good in a specific range. Well, if a guy's power goals were outside of that range, then he should have never been in that blower. So that's why when a person calls in, we want to talk about what kind of power they want to make now, and then where do they want to go in the future. So that way we can make sure that they're going to get the best product for now and later on, or maybe a product that has an upgrade path to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's funny that you mentioned the F1R because I think the peak of the confusion was probably 2007, 8-ish. I'm just thinking NMRA racing, where you had F1s in 3 or 4 classes, and none of them were anywhere near remotely like each other. You had the F1A, F1C in Renegade, then you had the F1R in drag radial, and then you had the F1. Oh, I forget the nomenclature over in Super Street Outlaw.
Right.
And the one in Super Street Outlaw was a monster. I mean, it was compared to, you try to throw that on a Renegade engine, it's just going to blow up. Like it was crazy. And it's nice to see everything's consolidated now.
So do you know how that happened?
I have no idea. I mean, other than the rules.
So what you're describing is when rules dictate what a product can be. So what happens, so it's not necessarily, it's not like what we want to make. It's not what the turbo company wants to make. It's not what the root blow. This is what the rules said it needs to be. So the F1R 100% was a blower built based on a rule. The impeller was a certain size and the volute had to be a certain size. And yet we had to compete against a blower that had a volute that was like 1.5 inches bigger.
Hey, Eric, can you do me a favor and show me on that piece behind you what those parts that you're talking about for people who don't know what we're talking about?
This is going to be really good because I made this to make fun of rules. Hold on. This is an Erik special. This is a Rad Tech exclusive. Okay.
Oh.
So hold on for a second. So this is exactly what you're talking about. This is what happens when rule makers make the rules. There's a class that runs a radial tire, and they limit superchargers to a certain size inlet. But then turbochargers also had a certain size inlet, but then turbos were allowed to have a map ring or a surge ring, or whatever we want to talk about here. So this supercharger that I made here technically would have been legal if you wanted to use the same loopholes that the turbos were. So this is a 13.5-inch compressor. And I believe this is a 106 millimeter inlet, if there would be an impeller in it. So hold on 2 seconds. Now do you notice what it is? It's actually an F3X. But if you stick this on it, that made it class legal. We obviously didn't do that, but I made this just in case the rules never changed, because I was going to start calling some people out, because that counts as
interesting. For sure.
That was an actual, that was a big deal when that popped up.
Right, because it was blatantly cheating. And that's why if you go to, recently I have discovered my newfound entertainment of truck and tractor pulls. It's very fun to go watch if you haven't watched them.
Got a buddy, Randy. He does tractor pulls down in Florida.
So I didn't know what, I think it's called the 2.6 class. Do you know about this? It's like, or Pro Outlaw 2.6, anyways, whatever. I didn't know what it was. So I just went out into the pits and just walked up to like the first guy with the Duramax that I could find. And I was like, hey man, what are you talking about when you're in the 2.6 class? And he said, oh, well, that's 2.6 inches. I'm like, what? So what they're talking about is that this is all they get, but they are prohibited to run any kind of anything else. So it is literally 2.6 inches. That's all they get. That's the airflow can only come into that engine, into that turbo or whatever it is with that size opening. And I was like, genius. Tractor pull guys that got it figured out. Just that's your limit. No cheating, whatever.
Erik, you're into some like interesting facets of motorsports and just like vehicles in general, right? Like you're into boats, cars, motorcycles, sounds like tractors now and trucks. You were talking about your boat just a moment ago. I know that's a big passion for you. You probably can't do it right now because of the weather, but no. I mean, if I actually, that's like going to be my personal vendetta, is to figure out how to get ProChargers on as many boats as I can, because it's, think about what a boat does. You get it up on plane, you're cruising, and then you floor it, and the tacks just sit at 6,000 RPM all day long. Well, where do we make juicy, sexy horsepower and torque? Right there. Yeah. I mean, it is such a natural fit. Space makes it a bit of an issue, but thankfully we got some awesome engineers that have been making some killer boat kits. I mean, just here. You jet boat guys are crazy, dude. I do some crazy stuff. I ride a motorcycle, and I go faster than I probably should. But boats scare the hell out of me, dude. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they should be able to do what they do, and they do.
Well, but think about it. Where else can you go and floor something as long as you want, and nobody's going to let you? You're not going to get a ticket. Nobody's going to care. You're just going to get waves and high fives. Where if you took a Mustang down the highway, wow, as fast as you wanted to go, you're either going to kill yourself, kill someone else, get a ticket, or it's
have some lights behind you.
But I mean, dude, there's all kinds of motorsports. Look at rock bouncing and King of the Hammers, and I think they call new ones called like the Havoc series. It's like off-roading where it's like a combination of rock bouncing but also technical trails. I mean, dude, guys with big engines or with stuff with pistons will think of absolutely anything. There's a
Oh,
mini
for sure.
bike. There's a mini bike with a ProCharger on it now.
Is it owned by Mike Copeland?
I have no idea who the guy is. I put it on Facebook one time, but I follow it on Instagram. But it's a mini bike with a like B1 or a C1 ProCharger on it.
That's hilarious. Dude, you have a particular affinity for things, vehicles from the 80s and 90s era. You were joking off camera and you said if it's got teal or turquoise or purple or pink, you're into it. Where's that love for that era of car come from?
I mean, I think it's
or just vehicle, I guess.
I mean, I think it's just like the generation before us. I mean, the reason why 69 Camaros were worth big bucks and the Hemi Cudas and stuff, I mean, those were the cars that they wanted when they were in high school and all of that. So like, I mean, I can appreciate a Tri-5 Chevy, but it's just not my jam. I mean, I would like riding in it and stuff, but to me, it was Fox body Mustangs, square body pickup trucks, Grand Nationals, Typhoons, all the really weird stuff. I mean, dude, MR2s, dude, I had an MR2.
Sure.
It was the weirdest little car, and I mean, it was such a blast. So it's like now that I'm older, it's probably just like the generation before us. They want to go back, like it's like a know your roots kind of thing.
For sure.
I mean,
you've had
if I won,
collection.
I was gonna say if I won the lottery tomorrow, or whatever, and I had $100 million, dude, you better believe I'm gonna have the first thing I'm gonna buy is a C4 Corvette.
No. Are you kidding me? Really? I wouldn't have guessed that. I'm not surprised, but I wouldn't have guessed that.
I've never owned one. I want to own one. I have no space to own one currently, but if I won the lottery, I could get a bigger garage. But to me, man, the freaking round taillights of like the Barbie Vet. I mean,
you don't have to explain it to me. I love the C4. People are only like, I feel like people are only now like warming up to them, from a younger generation, because one, they're affordable, two, they're actually pretty great performance cars, and maybe not power output, but the way they handle and stuff, and they're plentiful. So I mean, they're really cool.
I guess I want to know, why do you feel like you need to win the lottery for that car?
Actually, that is a pretty good. That is a fair statement. Again, I'm out of room, so I really want to build a garage or a second garage in my house. But I want to win the lottery because I'm tired of selling cars, and I want to keep all of them. And I mean, I've been fortunate enough that I've owned a lot of cars. I mean, I think I've had 17 or 18 Fox body Mustangs alone, and plenty of Cobras and all kinds of other stuff.
You still have that really rare Fox body? Was it a pace car? What was the deal with that Fox body that you had that was like super rare?
I sold that to a guy. Moe's Speed Shop owns that now. Anyways, yeah, I mean, it actually wasn't rare at all. There's nothing rare about that car. They made 10,000 of them. It's just rare because I don't know how many are still around, and they're really ugly, but I thought they're so ugly they're beautiful. Yeah, I want to win the lottery so that I could be like Jay Leno and someday walk into actually, what's that guy's name on YouTube? He's like my hero. He's here in Kansas. Is it Hoovie's Garage? Have you seen this?
Oh, yeah. I've seen his videos.
Here. I think he's about 3 hours from us, but he seems to keep almost everything. And I mean, he's basically my hero. I mean, he's got all kinds of cool stuff. He's got complete terrible automobiles. But
it's funny.
I think it's funny that
guy on YouTube, Adam LZ, he's not old enough to want these 80s cars like you and I. Like you and I are kindred spirits when it comes to that. Right. But he has basically just bought all these old Japanese crap boxes because they're what he likes. And it's like, well, yeah, sure. He can go drop, money on a Porsche GT3 RS or whatever right now. And he does, he has one, but he also has, what is it? An Aristo? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a cool car is a cool car. It doesn't, it could be for the first type of cool, or it could be for the second type of cool, right? Like the first type is like it's a performance car and it does all these amazing things. The second type is just, I like it. That's why it's cool, you know? So, I mean, I think it's funny that Eric, you were saying you're over here talking about an MR2, but you gloss over the fact that you used to own a Viper, and it's like, they couldn't be farther. No, not, I'm just saying, like, they couldn't be farther apart, but you've owned both, or, you know what I mean? It's kind of cool.
I mean, there was I feel like I peaked a couple years ago with my automotive diversity, and unfortunately I sold all of them trying to be financially responsible. So at one time I had the Viper GTS sitting right next to my rat rod, which was on airbags, 1 inch off the ground, you know, things like 20, I mean, short, had zoomies, made 700 horsepower. We had a Viper, my rat rod, my Cadillac, and a 93 Cobra all sitting next to each other. So you had all of these extremes sitting in the garage, and none of them were practical. I mean, at all. I mean, the Cadillac was hard to park literally everywhere you took it. The rat rod pretty much tried to kill you every time you got in it. Well, more so than the Viper. And then, yeah. So,
yeah, but a collection is about fulfilling different needs, right? For like whatever
you're
doing.
I know it was. And so truthfully, now I'm like, oh, and I had a Celine Mustang at that time too, because that was kind of cool. But I feel like I peaked. I would like to go back to that day. I'm like, God, why did I get rid of it? I had all these weird genres, but it was all about the experience, you know? And that, unfortunately, you guys know the guys that are like really good at building a car, and then as soon as it's done, they want nothing to do with it. They're like totally over it. And you're always like,
yeah,
why did that guy just spend like $100 grand building that car, and then he sold it for 50 grand or something to start the next build? I feel like that's how I am. I like experiencing it. I like the build. I like doing little tweaks here and there. And then unfortunately, I'm a terrible owner. Like then they sit and I don't do anything. So.
Well, you mentioned, I know that we're talking about kind of retro vehicles right now, or classics, as it were, modern classics. Is that a thing? I think so.
I think that is.
Anyways.
Yep.
But you also mentioned.
Thanks, Haggerty.
Again?
I was going to say Haggerty, because I think that's what they call them.
Oh, really? Damn it. I thought I coined it. Oh, well. Anyways.
Pretty sure if you want to figure out how to make money flipping cars, just figure out what Haggerty says is going to be the next modern classic. And then it's like, whoop, there goes the dollar value.
OBS pickup trucks.
And Broncos. OBS Broncos.
Yes. But so you mentioned that you have something late model, right? That you're
driving?
That Mustang that you're driving.
Yeah, I got a 2017 as a daily driver. It's got it actually has our carb legal P1SC kit on it. So it's actually,
is that the orange?
Hey, remember when I came to visit you?
Oh, okay, yeah.
The black car, the black Mustang, that's mine.
Nice.
We took that up to that canyon or whatever it is up there by Lake Elsinore or whatever.
Yeah, we went up all the way up to the entrance of where is that, Greg? Ortega Highway.
Yeah, Ortega Highway crosses over Orange County.
I have a great picture of my car there, which it'll never go back there. But yeah. So yeah, that's my daily driver fun car, you know, and I have a non-fun daily driver that serves a need, A to B, right? So if it's A to B and I want to have some fun and take my daughter to school, man, Mustang all day long, you know? So.
You still got any classics, modern or otherwise?
Well, I have the 93 Cobra, which I'll never get rid of, or so I say. And then I got a Coyote swapped coupe. And what?
That's awesome. I love it, man.
And so 3 Mustangs currently, which is just by happenstance. There's always a rotation, you know. And then my C10 that I did, or my square body that I did LS swap, but not because I wanted it to make more horsepower. Well, sort of. I wanted to have a motor that didn't leak, had overdrive, and I could put a ProCharger on. So
what year?
It's an 86.
I have an 84. Fleet side or step side?
Fleet side.
Mine's step side.
That's like a California thing.
You think?
100%.
I don't see him out here that often. I always see the fleet side.
Oh, I mean, I can't even. I mean, other than my friend that has a step side, like one friend, I can't even tell you the last time I saw one. I mean, it's like that rare.
That's kind of why I like them. It makes them, like, to me, look a little bit more like
Pro Street.
like a little muscle truck. Yeah.
Mhm.
But what did yours come with? 305?
I had a 350.
Wow,
It
lucky.
doesn't matter.
Mine has
I mean, it doesn't matter. It leaked oil and it could barely get over the speed bump. So, because I mean, a 350 I think was rated at 150 crankshaft horsepower. Crank. That's
yeah.
that's bad news, man.
Hey, I don't want to interrupt real quick, but I feel like it's important for anybody that cares watching. We literally just landed on Mars again, or on Mars, the Mars rover.
Really?
Yeah, just
What?
touched down.
Oh man,
Was it? What? That's cool.
I'm sure we
All
can.
right.
So when can we ProCharge a rover?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. We got so many ProChargers on so many things going on right now. I can't even keep up with it. Mini bikes, rock bouncers, boats. I mean,
So that's where I was leading, because I thought that your Mustang was the orange Mustang, and I was gonna say
no, that's a company.
I was a little bit offended because you told me I don't know Jack.
Oh God, Jack, the Jack Lantern.
Yeah, the Jack Lantern car.
No. I think so. That car is owned by ProCharger. We also have a white one that makes big power too. That's an automatic with a stall, cage, fuel system, all kinds of crazy stuff. And we've never done anything with the car. It just sits in storage. Someday we might go do something with it. But Jack, I love Jack. We sold it, but we had a Z06 and Jack at the same time. And both were stock, except for the Z06 had a cam. But other than that was stock manifolds, stock catalytic converters, stock mufflers. You get the idea, right? And then Jack is the 2019 Mustang, which is totally stock, nothing done to it. Fuel system, P1X kit, so the same kit that anybody would buy, entry level, and obviously a tune for good gas, and it made 952 wheel through stock mufflers, stock mid pipe. That's it. It has two mods, a blower kit and a fuel system. That's it. And then we did the same thing with now, could it make more? Maybe, but that's not a forge motor. I mean,
what transmission was in that thing?
It's a stick. So
for sure. It
was really just meant to, like, how much power could you make with the entry level kit? Now, could we put a D1X on it and make 1,000? Guarantee we could. But I just none of us really knew how long the motor is going to be happy at 4-digit power numbers, right? With absolutely no supporting mods, nothing. The Z06 was kind of the same idea, but the Z06 is obviously a forged motor. So we did put a camshaft in it because they're pretty small stock. And we put a F1A94 on it, and it made 1195 to the tire. Stock mufflers, stock mid pipe, stock cats, stock manifolds. So literally, again, a virtually bone stock car with a blower kit. And then on that car, we did a Holly for the extra fuel. So basically a fuel system.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so it was really just I should probably do a better job of explaining what those cars were and why we did it.
Because for our viewers at home, you can check them out right now. You guys have videos on your YouTube channel, but on ProCharger.com, you can go check them out.
Yep. So the guys at Engine Power, I don't know if I can mention that, but they are wonderful guys there at Engine Power. They had both those cars on the shows, and just kind of explaining that they were bone stock, put a blower on it. Oh my gosh, how much power do they make? So,
speaking of, hey, you're talking about Corvettes. You guys just posted something about that C8. Can we talk about the C8?
I mean, I guess.
Yeah. Can we talk about the C8 and what you guys are doing?
So we very shortly I'll be able to show you more detail, but obviously you guys have gotten some pictures. You can see what it is. We are not yet releasing a full kit. However, we've had so many people hounding us for the hard parts. They're basically like, give us the intercooler, give us the blower, give us all that. We'll figure out the rest. Okay. So what we've done is we have 2 cars here, and we've retrofitted one of the cars as what we would feel a shop or a customer would do, where they're basically going to get the blower kit, they're going to get a meth kit, and they're going to get a timing box. So it's like all the way back to like 1990s, right? You had a car, you wanted to go fast, you didn't know how to tune it, you just started making some gizmos to make it work, right? And cars go fast. So the car that we have retrofitted like that makes, I mean, we say it makes 700 crankshaft horsepower. It makes well over that crankshaft horsepower. But we have been beating on that car in that configuration. Well, actually, both cars we beat on, but that configuration, we've been beating the snot out of that car. And I'm happy to report that neither car has ever had an engine issue, transmission issue, clutch issue, any of that. They're very fast, very fun cars. It really changed the driving experience of that car. I mean, that car needed 700 horsepower. It deserved 700 horsepower. It's driving a mid-engine car that makes like 400 and change or whatever they make. It's cool, but kind of like an MR2 was cool. Great driving experience. You just wanted it to go faster, right?
Did you just compare the new C8 to an MR2?
It feels like an MR2. I don't care. You can quote me. I don't care. So compared to like an R8 or a Huracan or any all-wheel drive mid-engine car, it's a very different driving experience because, one, there's no trunk. So think about that for a second. How many mid-engine cars have a full-blown trunk behind the rear wheels? Not many, right? So the C8 is a very bootylicious car, right? And it's not all-wheel drive. So you're down to like, like a McLaren or, it's rear-wheel drive and all that. But if you drive like a Lamborghini and you're used to driving that, well, that's definitely not how a C8 drives. Because like anything with all-wheel drive and you like point the steering wheel and mat it and it like claws its way through a corner, it's different. Where this, with the C8 with the ProCharger on it, I mean, you can slide the booty out and drift the entire corner and, look like a superhero now. It's really weird. It's a very weird driving experience.
Interesting.
But it's fun. I don't know. It's a fun car. It's a very fun car.
So when can we expect to know more? And then what can you tell us about the other car?
So truthfully, I think we are probably, I always say this, but so we're waiting on a couple OEM-ish pieces. I want to say, I think we're about a month or so or 2 away from that. And then another thing that you guys know we're big in is we really like track testing. So right now we've done lots of normal street driving. We've done quarter-mile stuff. We've done plenty of loaded dyno runs and all that. I mean, more than I can even imagine or care to count. But we haven't road coursed in that configuration. And so we are waiting for the weather. There's no point in us going on a road course if it's like not hot. We have to wait till it is totally terrible outside to really stress test some stuff. So, before we can say that like this thing's road course perfect, I mean, we have a darn good idea, but I mean, unless you're an OEM and you can ship your cars to like the desert right now, we got to wait. So I would say like a month or 2 to where we can, I mean, like no joke, we can't even go to like Texas. It's freaking as cold in Texas.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
well,
but I will say this. I mean, we're very excited because the trunk still is a trunk. You can put your stuff back there. There's no, you'll be able, mufflers, and it still sounds like a Corvette because it's obviously a supercharger, so there's no, you have this nice bellowing exhaust tone. There's no.
So you mentioned another car though. That one that you guys put together, did a lot of testing with. But you mentioned another one. What's the difference between that one and the one that you were just describing?
We just test the two cars against each other in different configurations. So we have
Mm.
two of them that the company owns. So it's been really good to, whether one's modified and one's stock, or one's modified in a different way than the other one's modified, having two cars that the company owns that we can basically stuff full of temperature probes and beat on them, and without having to, they're not customers' cars, or, we don't have to be gentle with them. They're ours. So if we break it, we bought it, all good. And that's really what needed to be done with this platform. When we're doing like a model year update for a Challenger, we don't buy like a 2018, 2019, 2020 Challenger. We just phone up, any of our dealers or a customer, and they're usually like, yeah, you can borrow it for a couple of weeks. We just want to verify that everything fits. But when it comes to a new platform like this, I mean, we wanted to go out of our way to make sure that things were right. So
No, it makes sense.
mean,
That's why I was.
I think we've had a blower on the black car for, almost a year now.
That's what I was going to say. You guys put it on there like almost right after they came out. I was like, oh dang, these guys already ProCharged this thing.
Yeah. Thankfully, the guys had seen a lot of seen the car early and the CAD models early and all of that. So there was only a few changes when the production car actually came out. And luckily, the way that we had designed the system just barely missed, or cleared some of the changes that they had added to the actual production car. So we got really lucky, because it wouldn't have taken much and it would have been like, oh, dang. But what's great is the kit goes on. You don't cut anything, you don't bend anything, you don't trim anything. It truly is a bolt-on supercharger kit, which I think, I got to be honest, I didn't know we were going to be able to do it. But
yeah, that's pretty impressive considering like the tight space that you have in there.
It is. It is a very tight. But I had an R8 with a supercharger on it, and to do that, you had to drop the entire motor out of the car. You had to cut the firewall. It was a debacle to do a supercharger on that car. Obviously, it wasn't a centrifugal, but this is much easier to do. You're not doing it in 4 hours, but you're not dropping the motor out of the car. You're not cutting the firewall or any of that. You're truly bolting it on.
That's dope. Everybody at home, keep your eyes peeled. I'm sure we'll have more to see soon. Erik, as we kind of start to wrap things up, I wanted to open up the floor to Greg, because he is our resident tech guru, right? And I know he'll have some tech heavy questions for you. And I've seen you in action, specifically during the filming of Power Automedia's Pony Wars. So you're the right guy to answer the questions. Greg, where you at, bro?
All right. Well, my tech questions have pretty much gone into Greg and Erik land. Like, I don't know if anybody else is going to care about it, but it's actually
they will.
a cool, look. Why do you think that centrifugal superchargers have been such a choice for like the small block Ford and the earlier Mustangs, when you would think that would get kind of a wind or whatever, back in the day? Why are Mustang guys such centrifugal blower? Like, what is the love there?
Man. Okay. Well, number one, centrifugals, especially when you're talking about back then, we're just so far ahead of the curve as far as horsepower per pound of boost was just, you could buy say you had a 1988 Mustang that was speed density and very, what did those things make? 170 or 80 horsepower or something.
To the wheels? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you could put 14 pounds of boost in that thing. And as long with a ProCharger, D1, I believe was the kit, and big 3-core intercooler. So all you were doing is chilling that air back down, and you had an FMU in that thing. And I had a buddy, I'm not joking you, Jason Kelly, I'm calling you out right now. He had a 14 or 15 pound kit on his bone stock car other than headers, and that dang thing made 408 to the tire. So we went from 180 to 408. I mean, significant. I mean, you're like, that was a fast car back in the day. So I think there was nothing that came close. You couldn't put a roots blower on and get anywhere near that number. I mean, you could make boost, you just didn't have the side effect of horsepower. I mean, it made a little bit more, but and then thankfully now with machining technologies, the impellers are we can make an impeller better and better and better. It's not that you couldn't make that good of an impeller back then. It's that the cost to make that impeller was so high that it would drive your supercharger kit price way, way up. Well, now thanks to like 5-axis DMGs, you can cut a complex impeller so quickly. It's helped make a centrifugal way more, or even more efficient than it was, and still cost effective. So I think Mustang guys are very bang for the buck conscious kind of guys. And I feel like there's no way you can't deny that for whatever, $6,500, you can buy a Mustang kit from us that'll produce over 1,000 crankshaft horsepower, which we proved with Jack. I mean, bang for the buck. What else are you going to buy that can make that kind of power?
Yeah. I mean, nitrous bang for the buck. Yeah, but it's not going to make the ultimate power.
Right.
But you mentioned the impellers and the sizes, because back in the day, I mean, if you had a complex shape, you had to cast it pretty much, right?
Correct. Which has its drawbacks. I mean, fatigue, casting flaws. I mean, there's any number of the expansion of heat and contraction. I mean, you're talking about something you're trying to spin 70,000 RPM. I don't think people grasp how fast that is. I mean, it's really fast. I mean, 6,000 RPM in an engine is fast. Now multiply that by 10. You know, I mean, stuff is winging. So when stuff tries to expand from centrifugal force, I mean, the billet impeller, ProCharger has always been about the billet impeller. A billet impeller is absolutely the way to go because the strength of what you can get out of it is so good. And we have billet gear cases.
When you talk about cast versus billet and the raw materials, like so when you're casting something, you're pouring that molten material into a form, and then that's what you're left with, and you can polish it or whatever. But why is that weaker versus using a billet or a milled piece?
Well, the cast is cast, so I mean, you got air can be in the mold. You got all kinds of impurities just by nature. I mean, like think of a cast wheel on a car versus a forged wheel like a weld. I mean, hitting a speed bump at speed, the cast wheel is going to bend or crack or fatigue. The forged wheel is going to have a better time taking that load and recovering from it. So ProCharger's big thing was, billet impellers back in the day. They could spin them faster. They could run a tighter tolerance because of their lack of expansion, which made a more efficient compressor. And we just never let up on it. I mean, we had billet impellers back then. We got billet impellers now. Now we have billet gear cases because a billet forged gear case can take the horsepower load of the gears moving and bending everything's moving when you're talking about that kind of speed. So the cases can take that kind of force that people are putting into them. I mean, I can't go into numbers, but I think people will be shocked. I mean, moving 3,500 horsepower worth of air, I mean, you're putting a lot of force into some stuff. So obviously making 500 horsepower is putting force into some stuff. So it's amazing what crankshafts.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a couple more things, but you just said the cast or the forged billet wheel. One thing I don't know if you can touch on this like officially or not, but one thing I think a lot of people don't understand is the word billet. I mean, you can, in theory, just cast a big block of aluminum and machine it and call it billet. Like if you're making, pretty stuff. I think the word billet has become bastardized and watered down. So like when let's clarify a little bit. When you say billet, you guys are forging a billet and then machining out of it, correct?
Right. So yes, no. So we use it depends on the impeller and stuff like that. But the wheels are actually like aircraft grade forged, you know, like they come from the same place that's supplying, you know, parts for Lockheed Martin, stuff like that. We're not talking about some, I don't know which word you want to look for. Yeah, what you're talking about. It's not just like metal like flowed into a cylinder and then we chop it up with a CNC machine. I mean, they are forgings, whether it's 6061 or I believe 7075 is the impeller material, if I'm not mistaken. So I would have to check what the gear cases are made out of. It probably changes too, depending on if it's a street blower or a race blower.
Yeah, it's just that word billet, it gets thrown around so much that I honestly, maybe the last 10, 15 years, it's kind of lost what it really means.
Right. And it, yeah, I mean, again, another thing that people don't realize is that our blowers are actually designed to run. This is very relevant in negative degree temperatures up to like we have tested them and really tested them at negative 40 degrees, I believe, to make sure that the bearing tolerances, the impeller tolerances, and the shafts can take that. So, I mean, the other day I drove my Mustang. It was negative 20. Did I care? Nope. Did the blower care? Nope. You know, just like the OEMs test down at those levels, we do the same thing. Is that necessarily for racing? No. It's more for our industrial side, but because we learn it on the industrial side, we bring all of that into the racing stuff as well.
Now, speaking of the industrial side, I know a lot of people in the market probably don't know about your industrial side, but which way would you say does the information flow more? Do you learn more industrial and put it into performance, or does performance learn stuff that then gets implemented in industrial?
Man, I think okay. So I love the industrial side. I think it's amazing. So just like I think it's okay to drive an electric car to work and back and have a race car as a thing, I love that that's kind of like what ProCharger does. We have ProCharger that's trying to make fast stuff faster. And then we have Innovair, which is trying to move air and have the customer spend the least amount of money possible to move that air. And I mean by energy, because most of the industrial stuff is driven off of electric motors. So what they're trying to do is move a lot of air and save money on a power bill. And I'm talking big bills. I'm not talking about $100 at your house per month. I'm talking, you know, where a power bill is probably a third of your operating expenses for your company. So if you can save a company 30 to 40% on their power bill, well, then you're their superhero at that point. I mean, so Innovair wouldn't exist without ProCharger. And then, you know, ProCharger is also gaining some very fun stuff because of Innovair. We have some awesome aerodynamic test chambers that were all purchased for industrial reasons, but help us build race blowers. You know, I can't say if you didn't have that industrial side, I don't know if you would have the justification to have that kind of stuff. But man, it's really wild. I mean, if you fly on an airplane almost anywhere in the world except for Russia, chances are a ProCharger de-iced it. The F-35 strike fighter, every one of those flying in the sky, there's a ProCharger somewhere associated with it, not in the air, but in its ground support cart on the ground. So when that plane lands, it gets hooked up to a ground support cart that has a ProCharger inside of it. Wastewater treatment plants, big giant factories that are doing pneumatic conveying, all kinds of stuff, crazy stuff. Lots of air movement, and we're really good at it. Just like we're good at making horsepower, we are really good at moving air and saving companies money.
That's funny.
Nice.
I'd heard the de-icing pump thing before, and I had actually forgotten about it until you just mentioned it. But my last tech question for
Go
you.
for it.
Probably more relevant to the people actually listening, not me just being a nerd. The self-lubricating versus externally oiled. That has been one of your guys' big deals for, you know, pretty long, right?
Well, yeah, because like I said, my Mustang had one of the first blowers on it that got driven. And I mean, the first one, I think Well, the very first one, I mean, was just put oil in it and shut it and see what happens. And that didn't really work out very well. But, and then came up the aeration pump and moving bearings around and stuff like that. But I mean, I think there was a lot of hate in the beginning and people thought it would never work, never work. Well, look where we're at. It works. It works really good. I mean, if you have a motor failure, the last thing you want to do is shove a bunch of metal through your supercharger. So, keeping the two separated seems very natural. Obviously, look at OEM's superchargers, all self-contained. I mean, it's like a no-brainer. It just keeping fuel out of oil is a good idea, right? So, all right, come on. What do we got? Got more? I'm ready.
Erik, we know that you're a busy man, and so as we wrap up here, I just want to give you like an open forum to plug whatever you guys are currently working on, where people can go find out more about what's cooking at ProCharger and what's on the horizon for you guys.
Man, everybody just get on our website. We have a blog. We post every week. It's not like when I say get on your blog and it's something from 2019 or 2018. I mean, we literally post every week with something we're doing, and we still can't keep up. So no matter if you got a Toyota 4Runner or you got a Camaro ZL1, we got a blower kit for you. And the best place to find that out is obviously at ProCharger.com or on our Facebook, ProCharger Superchargers, and same for the Instagram, ProCharger Superchargers. But man, I love you guys. Love you having me on, rambling about my life.
No, Erik, we really appreciate it, man. And those are the stories that people want to hear because, like you said, everybody over at ProCharger, you guys are all like car people. And so, the people at home, they want to know that you share the same passion that they do. So we really appreciate you sharing those stories with us and just coming on here and doing some car talk, man. It was cool. It was fun.
No, you nailed it. I mean, most of the people that work here have worked here a very, very long time. Our CEO is still the same guy that was the CEO when they started it in 25 or 26 years ago now. I mean, it's awesome. I love this industry, love working with people that have the passion. It's just cool to be able to make a career out of it. And I can't wait to see what the future holds, man.
Definitely, man. Put a word in Ken's ear because we want to have him on the show too. And send us a photo of that square body you're talking about and your Fox body.
Will do.
All right, Erik. So there you have it, Greg. Erik Radzins, everyone, the Rad Man himself. Now it was totally cool. I told you at the beginning I was excited to start this episode and just hang out with my buddy Erik, and he did not disappoint. We talked about 80s and 90s cars. We talked about I think we talked about the C4 Corvette. Talked about a lot of fun stuff, and then obviously we talked about ProCharger, a powerhouse in the power adder industry, as it were.
Yeah, and I loved it. I mean, we could have honestly gone on for at least an hour just with the fun 80s cars. Because, I mean, you talk about 80s, just if you hit the lottery, things you would have. 323 GTX. I don't know if you remember the Mazda 323, a little Econo box, little hatchback.
Oh yeah, it was like the Mazda 3 or the Mazda 6 before the Mazda 3 and Mazda 6.
Yeah, but the GTX was a little turbo all-wheel drive pocket rocket. Like, oh, they were so cool. My neighbor had one, and it was just a daily driver for him, and he would never sell it to me because it was a cheap car to him. And I'm sitting here going, I want it. But
listen,
it was a little rally car, But yeah, there's something about the 80s vehicles that just hug it.
Oh, they're totally cool, man. They're like I was telling Erik, they're the modern classic, right? And apparently I didn't coin that phrase. Thanks, Haggerty. But yeah, they're the modern classics, man. OBS pickup trucks, Ford or Chevy, are just like selling like hotcakes. Like, and people want them as bad as square body Chevys now. They're just paying crazy money for them. The C4 Corvettes that Erik was talking about, they're not like skyrocketing in price, but they're holding steady pretty good. And now the aftermarket's catching up. I mean, it's just, people our age have a little bit more money now to kind of have a project car or do whatever. And so I think that, like Erik was saying, it's all about the car that you had or wanted when you were in high school, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's you can look at Barrett Jackson. Just look at some of the stuff. I mean, obviously not, the big ticket items, right? But if you've ever been to a Barrett Jackson, and we're getting into Barrett Jackson season, the auctions actually happen for like 8 or 9 days, and so if you go in on one of the real early days, it's some of the lower price stuff, but you're starting to see a lot more things that, well, at least I thought were cool when I was, in high school. But you're also seeing things like R32 GTRs, some of those Fast and the Furious-esque. Like I'm not trying to say they're,
No.
but
I see what you're saying. Like
because
that
when
era,
we were
that time
kids,
frame.
we drooled over those, and now we have expendable income, so we're buying that
For
stuff.
sure.
So, and they're
Yeah.
not turning it away just because it's not their typical, market, I guess, because
It's an
they
interesting
see the
time to
passion.
be. Yeah, it's an interesting time to be an enthusiast because um, there are so many niches that you could be a part of, right? Like you could be that like um, early 90s well, I don't even pick an obscure car that like you could be into pretty much anything and there's going to be like a following for it. There's going to be a forum, there's going to be a website, there's going to be like a Facebook group. So it's a really interesting time to be a part of like automotive culture. Whereas in days past, it was like those cars weren't old enough to be loved and they were too new, you know what I mean? So they were kind of like stuck in the middle. And really, if you were going to be an enthusiast, it was like classic or brand new, and that was it.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
I don't know. It's an interesting.
the perfect example is like when I had my Ford Focus and it was my road race car and all that stuff. I had a really, tight group of friends that we all, went to forums because we, 20-year-old kids. We were talking the other day, and first off, the fact that car is now 21 years old, it blows my mind because it feels like yesterday. And it was funny because I called one of my friends old. I'm like, man, you're looking old. And he's like, what do you think you are? Like 20 years ago that we became friends. But looking up replacement parts for that, because I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I started going on
Feeling a little bit
Craigslist looking for
nostalgic. You wanted another Focus.
yeah, they're
I
starting
feel
to
you,
go
man.
up in price. An SVT Focus,
Don't even tell me how
the
much.
rational part of me is like, you're not gonna pay $6,000 for a car with 200,000 miles on it. That's at this point 18 years
Is
old.
that what people want for an SVT Focus? How much are SRT4 neons going for now?
No idea. I was never into SRT4s.
I mean, neither am I. That's my point.
I'm
Like
just saying, I
no
never
one
looked.
was.
But yeah, so the SVT Focus, because I was seriously like, dude, tax time is coming. Maybe I'm gonna, get a new daily driver, right? Just who cares if it's a crap box, right? No. I think nostalgia is starting to kick in on those. I think
Well, that's what it's all
exactly what
about,
we're
right?
seeing.
Like, people are feeling nostalgic for these cars that they had, and they want them back. Like that's how I feel when I think about New Edge Mustangs. Like, historically, they have not been like well loved outside of the Mustang community. Like Mustang people like them, but outside of that, like people didn't really like them as much as other Mustangs, even though they sold like crazy.
Yeah.
But as far as performance is concerned, not great, but I had one and I'd like to have another one,
Yeah.
So
No,
I get
totally understand that. I mean, when I was looking for pickup trucks, the past few months, I kept going back to, the later part of the S10 pickup because that was my very first vehicle. And unfortunately, I don't think S10s have aged very well on the market. I don't
It's hard
think
to find a unmolested example.
well, find that and see how much they want for it. Like, but I was literally going 100% on nostalgia because I do remember driving that truck and going, man, it rides so rough and it gets crappy gas mileage and there's no
Wow.
tack and I mean I remember all but I love it. Like,
So
I
this
didn't end up spending money on it. Just probably a good thing, but
Yeah.
again, nostalgia.
unless you're gonna like small block Chevy swap that thing, then yeah.
I mean, in a drag application, I totally get it. Like, but at that point, why would you go with one of the later, like 2000s?
Yeah,
You
just
got
get
to
the
go
square
for
body
like an
one,
80s
square
or
body
90s.
version.
Yeah. Well, like Artie's building that Ranger. That is going to be so cool.
It'd have been cooler if it was a S10, in my opinion. But yeah, sure.
I mean, but you got to think about it. Like, he's going to not have very much money into it. It's going to be fast. Like,
yeah, he's a bracket racer, and that's his thing. Not really my thing. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll be cool. It'll be fun for him. That's for dang sure.
yeah.
If I had a Ranger, like you'd have to pay me not to build a pre-runner, just because the beam suspension and like they make a million parts to do it, and that's what I would do. But it'll definitely be a fast truck, and it'll be fun for him.
Yeah.
But dude, so it was actually kind of hard to find a neon SRT4, but I pulled one up, and this auction ended on Bring a Trailer, but it sold for $9,200, which is less than I thought for the amount of miles
way
and
more
how
than
clean.
I thought.
No, dude. So okay, so
$9,200.
Well, I was hoping to find like a pristine condition SRT4, not like a jalopy like junker, which would probably sell for how much you were thinking. I was thinking for a pristine condition, maybe 10, 11. And this one, like immaculate, 40,000 miles on it, sold for $9,000. So I think they got a good deal.
I can't wrap my head around that, because like a decent 98 Cobra goes for 11 or 12. I mean,
yeah, but when you upgrade the turbo components on these things, they were as fast.
But at the end of the day, it's still a 420A motor.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's a neon. Like I'm not a fan. I'm not. I don't want any flaming bags of crap on my doorstep, you guys. I'm not advocating for the Dodge Neon. I'm just saying that I'm not surprised that it sold for $9,000.
Yeah,
this particular model.
Yeah, and the SRT4, man, I had some adventures in one, because one of the guys I worked with bought one, and we had some adventures like driving it to Vegas, and
well, they could just launch. They were all-wheel drive, and I mean, they're actually kind of cool.
The SRT4? No, they were front-wheel drive.
Were they front-wheel drive? I thought they were all-wheel drive. Oh, never mind.
Front-wheel drive burnouts, baby.
Yeah, it shows how much I know about these things. I don't know. I just remember I had a buddy who had one, and it was wicked fast, and he used to blow the doors off my New Edge all the time. And yeah, so.
I mean, but that's the case with any turbo car. It's real easy to turn up the wick. I don't know how long it's going to last, but.
And also, to be fair, he got his doors blown off by a buddy of mine who had an 06 GTO. So, and like all he had was long tubes on it. So, anyways. We talked a lot about superchargers today. We talked about old cars. We talked about modern classics. We covered a bunch of different areas of motorsports with Erik. That was a lot of fun. As we start to wrap up, I know that we're forecasting this episode a little bit in advance, so it wouldn't be fair of me to ask you what's going on Engine Labs. Oh, really? We're going to air this one tomorrow?
Yeah, this one goes out tomorrow.
See, you guys, we're working so hard for you. We're recording so many episodes. I'm getting all mixed up. Greg, what's going on Engine Labs?
Well, I think the coolest thing is talking about the new Cadillac Blackwing engine for the CTS 5V.
Yeah, I saw you publish something about that. What's up?
Basically, Engineering Explained, Jason Fensky did something basically comparing the old and the new. But it's basically, we're guessing it's an LT4.
That's dope.
Impressive to me that we've got this 6.2 liter supercharged engine that is besting the 4.2 liter dual overhead cam. I mean, I'm pretty sure that when that Blackwing engine was released, that's what everybody thought was going in the C8. Because remember the rumors with the C8 was going to be dual overhead cam and all that. Pretty sure everybody saw that engine get released and we're like, that's it. There's the new C8 engine. And it didn't happen. And now we're actually seeing an old, what had the LT4? Was it the Z06?
It was the Camaro. Yeah. It was the ZL1 and the Z06.
Yeah. So that we see that engine coming over to the Cadillac side. And it's now, I mean, this is 45, 48 horsepower more than the previous LT4s, which is why I have a couple questions of what's different. Is it just boost? Or did they put a bigger, blower on
They
it?
probably put a
What
bigger,
happened?
yeah, they probably put a different pulley on it.
Yeah, like, but they could have put, I mean, because that thing's only running a 1740. And I mean, they make up to a 3100 now. Like
Yeah.
Eaton, but obviously you can't shove a 3100 in something built for a 1740. I'm just saying they have a
I get what you're saying.
1900. Maybe it's got a 1900 in. I don't know. I couldn't find the specs because Cadillac's playing the exact details kind of close to the vest. But it's just, we've got this push rod, and push rods are supposed to be old technology, right? We won't even get into the fact that overhead cam actually came out before push rods. But anyway, the LT4 spins higher than the 4.2 liter dual overhead cam version ever did by 600 RPM. If we're just going by stock rev limits, the big engine is over square, so it's got a bigger bore than a stroke because it's got the typical 6.2 liter LS LT arrangement, versus the Blackwing's old engine that was very under square, so it had a much taller cylinder than it was wide, which is a very odd choice. But I mean, it worked. I mean, the thing made 550 horsepower, but it only lasted 2019 to, well, they don't have a 2021, so technically 2 model years. Like that blows me away. Why pull an engine you put that much R&D into? And the best part, Jason Fensky put this the best, and I love the smart aleck way he did it. I wouldn't have the cojones to do this, but he points out that it was announced 4 days after GM's commitment to go green and all electric by 2035. And then, oh, by the way, here's a 686 horsepower V8.
Well, I think we could probably count on it being short-lived as well. And we can probably count on it costing an arm and a leg. And so they'll be in high demand. And the people that are lucky enough to get their hands on them will probably make a tidy sum if they ever decide to sell them later. But one thing, can we talk about the name? It's so cool, Blackwing.
The Blackwing.
Awesome.
I'm sorry. Every time I hear the name Blackwing, I think of Darkwing Duck.
Dude, I was gonna say the same thing. I really was. I was thinking that, but I think maybe the people who named it, they never watched it, so I don't know. But I do think it's cool, and I like that Cadillac's making like cool cars again. So
yeah,
I
mean, we did run that throwback article, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, about the GM's 10 largest engines over history.
Yeah.
Cadillac is very heavily featured in that article.
Dude,
it's just funny to see.
Cadillac's awesome.
Cadillac, they went through a period where they were, the Luxo barges.
Yeah, but that was like one of their coolest periods too. Like, at least for me, I always thought they were cool. You remember like in the early 2000s when like big classic Cadillacs were like the thing. Like I think Travis Barker from Blink-182 had one, and so then everyone in Hollywood had one, and like it was just everybody wanted those big caddies. I don't know.
Well, when the CTS-V came out, that's what really reignited. Because I mean they were doing real heavy. What was it? They were road racing them. God, what series was it? World Challenge.
Yep, I think Randy Post is famous for racing them.
Yeah, and I remember for a long time, one of the sales guys had this really nice, I think it was like 118, it might have been 114 scale model of the actual CTS-V R, that Randy drove. And it was because his father-in-law or something was somehow related to the supply chain, and they all got him as gifts. I used to offer him stupid money for that car because for whatever reason, like that model just drew me in, because I loved those cars.
So the next generation is that was the first generation.
Mm-hmm.
And those ones are really cool. People love them. But a lot of people don't like them because I know that they had like some issues with like there were some growing pains, because it was a new model. But the second generation is the one that I wasn't crazy about. The coupe. I hated the coupe because it was like that wedge shape, and then the
Yeah.
wagon. I don't really care for wagons. But the 4-door was really cool, and so to see that go away, I was kind of bummed. And now to see a return to form, as it were, I'm excited.
Yeah. I have a hard time saying CT4. Like I want to say CTS. That's just what my brain is wired for. But CT4, CT5, CT6 is gone now. But it's cool to see the sports sedan making a return.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think that's a good stopping point, Greg. For everybody watching at home, go check out enginelabs.com for the editorial that Greg was just describing about the new Caddy. And then go check out streetmusclemagazine.com. I think by the time you guys watch this, the new edition of Rare Rides will be up. And I won't say which car it is because we're going to talk about that with Rob Finkelman, possibly on our next episode. So keep an eye out for that. And obviously check out powerautomedia.com. Check out all the other magazines that fall under that banner. There's something for everyone. So go check those out. Obviously, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, leave us a comment, a like. Go check out our Facebook page, and we'll catch you next time, noon. Peace.